समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा?
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Dramatic things are taking place in geopolitics every day, every minute. The Taliban foreign minister has begun talks with the Modi government, and even as he touched down in Delhi, Pakistan reportedly bombed Kabul. I say reportedly because Pakistan has not officially owned the airstrikes that were seen to be targeted at the TTP leadership in Kabul. However, the mission failed. As one senior Afghan journalist said to me, Pakistan tried to do an Israel without any success. This is also a day that we should tell you that Trump has been trumped on the Nobel Peace Prize, which has instead gone to a Venezuelan activist. I'm Barkha. You're with the Mojo story. On the program today, we try and understand the big reset between India and Afghanistan. That is the Taliban foreign minister that you see with Indian foreign minister S. Jaishankar. Jaishankar also sent a very strong message to Pakistan in these talks, talking about how both Afghanistan and India had a shared concern over cross-border terrorism. Remember, these remarks come on a day when there have been mysterious explosions last night in Kabul, in the heart of the city. Pakistan has not officially owned its airstrikes, but do remember that Pakistan's defense minister has been threatening Afghanistan from the floor of the National Assembly. The Pakistan strikes in Kabul were seen to be targeted at the TTP leadership. Pakistan is facing grave unrest of its own, with mass street protests and reports of internet suspensions in both Rawalpindi and Islamabad. But the critical thing is, what is the big message, not just to Pakistan, but also to the Americans in this meeting between the Taliban delegation and our government? Remember, Trump has been fighting for control of the Bagram air base in Afghanistan. And in this matter, India, the Taliban, Russia, China, and even Pakistan are on the same side. To understand this big reset, India's tryst with the Taliban, not without controversy. Remember that India has announced that it is going to be reopening its embassy in Kabul, but you are dealing with a regime that doesn't recognize equal rights for women. And women journalists today were not allowed to attend the press briefing addressed by the Taliban. That is something that I do have to register my protest on. But of course, geopolitics means that India has to do business with other countries that may or may not share our values. The age of shared value diplomacy, in any case, is over. We are now living in the age of Trump. Let me welcome our very distinguished experts on the program today. Joining me now is Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, veteran diplomat. Good to see you, ma'am. Also joining me is senior journalist who spent decades pounding the foreign policy pavement beat is Padma Rao. Always a pleasure, and it is a great honor, as always, to have India's former army chief, General VP Malik, with us. Welcome to the program, all of you. I want to start by playing out what Jaishankar, Foreign Minister Jaishankar, said at his delegation talks with the Taliban when he announced that the technical mission in Kabul would now be redesignated or resume the rank of an embassy. Take a look.
Is fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of Afghanistan. Closer cooperation between us contributes to your national development as well as regional stability and resilience. To enhance that, I am pleased to announce today the upgrading of India's technical mission in Kabul to the status of Embassy of India.
So that was the big announcement. There were other comments. Jaishankar spoke about the shared concerns over cross-border terrorism. I'll play out the Taliban minister's comment as well. A very important comment there from him, talking about how India and Afghanistan can talk to the Americans together. But let's get first comments. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'll start with you, then General Malik, and then Padma. What is the import of this moment? What are we signaling here, both to Pakistan and the Americans?
Well, it's a very important development, and it's also very ironical because it was the same Pakistanis who said that Afghanistan provides strategic space for Pakistan against India.
I suddenly can't hear you, ma'am. I suddenly can't hear you. Let me bring in General Malik for first comments, and then I'll come back to you.
Right.
It's unfortunate. Oh, you're back there. Can you go ahead?
Yes, I was just saying that now we are going to be using Afghanistan as our strategic space, whether against Pakistan or anyone else, but it's come right back into a situation where India and Afghanistan together can play a very important role, certainly also in checkmating Pakistan and Pakistan's plans to continuously hem us in to our regional, sub-regional neighborhood. The second important issue here is that clearly we would be we have already supported Afghanistan in its bid not to hand over the Bagram air base to the Americans. And that is very strong support coming from an erstwhile very close strategic partner of the United States. And I think there will be many more announcements to follow. It would appear, therefore, that we would allow the Taliban to upgrade their embassy here. Whether we would allow them to fly their Taliban flag, I think is a given, because if they upgrade, they would fly their own flag. It would also mean regular diplomatic and other relations, including they need a lot of food, humanitarian assistance, medicines, etc. And that would need to be worked out as to how it should reach Afghanistan. Since we can't use Pakistan, we usually used to go through Iran. So these are things which need to be worked out. But yes, Barkha, it is a most important development, and it is a very important development for India's own attempts to find its own space, faced as it is with a very hostile Trump administration. As far as the measures against women journalists are concerned, I share your concerns. Usually they do allow them in with a scarf, so I don't know what happened today, but maybe we can work on that so that that doesn't happen in the future. Barkha.
Right. General Malik, let me bring you in. Yes, I think, women or men, you have to disagree with the Taliban diktat on women journalists in India. What they do in their own country is not something that we can intervene in beyond a point, beyond expressing concern or opposition to it. And we'll come to that. A number of prominent women journalists have also spoken about this on social media. We'll get to that. General Malik, I want you to come in on the larger aspect. Ambassador Mukherjee is talking about using Afghanistan as a kind of strategic space. In other words, India is Afghanistan's strategic depth. Pakistan anticipates this. Khwaja Asif, speaking in Pakistan's parliament after 11 Pakistani soldiers were killed, has warned Afghanistan that action was coming. We can see the strikes in Kabul. They missed their mark in the context of trying to send a message to both the Taliban and India. How do you read this moment, General Malik?
Barkha, thank you for getting me on your show. Firstly, I must say that the relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan, they have never been very close. And the cause has been the Afghanistani people have never accepted Durand line between the two nations. I remember long ago when I was a colonel and I had a student from Afghanistan Army, and he came and told me, he said, "Sir, we're looking forward to shaking hand with you across Indus River." And mind you, I come from that area. So he thought he was being confident, speaking to me in confidence. Now, ever since August 21, when the Afghan Taliban shunted out Americans from their land, Pakistan, which had been sheltering Afghan refugees almost for 50, 60 years, and also had raised Taliban originally themselves, they thought that they will be able to now have the Taliban government looking after, taking their diktats and, towing their line. And but soon after that, the issues of Durand Line have cropped up, and the issues of the TTP, which came out, which is working across the Durand Line, that came up, and the violence has been increasing ever since. And you just now mentioned the last incident which has taken place just a few days ago, where one colonel and one major of the Pakistan Army, they were killed. Let me also tell you that this is not the first time that the Pakistan has used air force against in Afghanistan territory. Last year in December, if I recall, also they had used it, though not in Kabul, but close to the Durand Line on the Afghanistan side. So what has happened now doesn't surprise me, because I have always felt that people-to-people contact between the Pashtuns and the Indians have always been very warm. And that is quite becoming evident now. Now, the churning of the strategic issue, churning is taking place. There is no doubt about it. We do not know what may happen tomorrow, but it seems at the moment that the tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan, we have made use of it. And why not? To be able to improve our relations. Mind you, we have been giving them assistance, humanitarian assistance, for last so many years, including, till now. So that work has been going on, and the relations have not been so bad. So now that we are establishing an embassies in two countries, I think the situation will improve further. Our relations will improve further. And if it doesn't suit Pakistan, so be it.
Pakistan, of course, Padma, has been roiled by street protests for the last few days. There were reports today that the internet services had been suspended in Rawalpindi and Islamabad. And, we have seen crackdown on the TLP in the cities of Lahore, also Islamabad, Rawalpindi, if we can bring up those shots as well as we go along. There are some of those shots. There's a big crackdown happening on TLP workers in Punjab, and things are getting quite tense for Pakistan. But at the same time, General Malik and Ambassador Mukherjee both make the point that whatever friction is unfolding between Pakistan and Afghanistan at this point, India will obviously try and use that to our advantage. But India has been squeamish about recognizing the Taliban. We've been very tentative. We have, so far not recognized its flag, even though Ambassador Mukherjee says once you have an embassy, they'll have their embassy, and then you can't do anything about it. But there is a deep dissonance, of course, about their policies towards women. And we saw that play out today. I just want to read out. So Hasni Haider has said on social media, what is ridiculous is that the Taliban foreign minister is allowed to bring their abhorrent and illegal discrimination against women to India as the government hosts the Taliban delegation with full official protocol. This is not pragmatism. This is supplication. Dealing with the Taliban isn't easy for any government in the world. I feel Suhasini's fury, what the hell? You're stopping women, Indian women, from doing their job. But I guess the government is now calculating this basis a fast-changing world order. Basis, as ma'am said, Trump's hostility. Basis, as General Malik said, the growing tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan. How do you see it?
Thank you for having me on your show, Barkha. I think overall the visit is to be welcomed. I've never been one for meddling in human rights in other countries much in Western fashion, because it isn't likely to act as a deterrent, since we are not making it conditional to aid like Western countries have always done.
I know, but it happened here. I don't think we'd be talking about this if it had happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So if we start preaching women's rights in other countries, yes, this happened, I'm coming to that, then plenty of countries will have plenty to preach to India, as you know, about gender, caste, creed, religion, etc. So rightly, we won't stand for it, in that case. So best, I think, not to go down the fact that we're not going down that road with Afghanistan and making a beginning diplomatically is good. I agree with you completely about the Afghans disallowing women into their embassy and India allowing this disallowing. But then again, as you pointed out earlier before we went on a live on your show, this could be a play on the fact that an embassy is considered to be that country's territory,
Region.
even if it's in a foreign country. Yeah. So they might have played on that, but I agree that it is very awkward. And I think from the Afghan side, they should have shown a little more, tolerance and been aware of the fact that that this is a very, this is an initial meeting and it's all eyes are on it. Coming to your question on, and of course, given these global changes, I agree with the ambassador and with the general. The need of the hour is pragmatic policy, not navel gazing. And this Afghanistan visit is a sign that the Indian ostrich is pulling its head out from under the sand in this region and engaging with the big boys. In this case, we're telling the US, we're telling China, we're telling everyone, come on, bring it on. So we're chopping and changing strategy too. But there is a need for caution, Barkha. I feel there's a strong need. Never mind under whom. I mean, this region has been my patch for 30 years. And Afghanistan is one country that has seen the maximum number of political changes and constant upheaval over these past so many decades. And I feel that any new leaf turning, any claims by the Taliban that this relationship is entering a new era, that India-Afghan relations will be perfectly smooth henceforth, I think this is a bit of an illusion. It is in the nature of Afghanistan to see constant and sudden change. We must be prepared for that, and indeed prepared for the long haul, not exit like we did in 2021 immediately when there are the first signs of change. And at that time, we did it with a fair amount of dithering. Yeah. So I think India's engagement also will have to extend beyond the Taliban in Afghanistan, and perhaps on occasion even to more unpalatable players like some of the other militant players and organizations sprawled all over the region. Now that we're in it, we have to be in it. We can't be going in there. It won't help if we imagine we're going in there with a halo around our head like good Samaritans alone, because neither China nor Pakistan's hands or motives in Afghanistan, Pakistan certainly not, are entirely clean. So I feel that one has to be very cautious. I mean, for instance, we have to look at the question, what is the Taliban's current relationship with the many terror outfits that are sprawled all over Afghanistan and Pakistan border areas? I mean, we know that, this Pakistan airstrike that you referred to may have been in retaliation and out of pique towards this Afghanistan visit here. But since the Taliban, this interesting thing about this airstrike, the Taliban claims it does not support the Tehrik-i-Taliban, the Afghan Taliban. But it is curious that the TTP leader that the strikes were ostensibly to take out, Noor Wali Mehsud, he spoke up and said he was in Pakistan, but he said he admitted his son was killed in the strike. Yeah. So what was the son doing in Afghanistan then? So there are things like this. The truth is we don't know enough about the relationship between the Taliban and various other groups taking out. And there's Al-Qaeda. I mean, I'll list them in a bit, but there are all the usual suspects.
Let me come in at this point and actually play out a clip from that press conference by the Afghan foreign minister. We do also have journalist Smita Sharma telling us that women were not invited to begin with, so they called only men to this press briefing. So that's on that press conference. But on what he said, he's talking about India and Afghanistan talking together to Trump. This is a very interesting statement that has come today, and I want to play it out. Take a look.
ये हमारा सफर जो हिंदुस्तान में है ये बहुत अहमियत का से बरखुरदार है और चाबहार के हवाले से तो एक अच्छा रास्ता और अच्छा फुर्सत है कि उससे इस्तिफादा होना चाहिए। हम और हिंदुस्तान दोनों कोशिश करें कि ये रास्ते में जितना भी मुश्किलात है, जितना भी रुकावटें हैं, उसको दूर हो जाए, चूँकि इसी रास्ते में अमेरिका का भी कुछ पाबंदियां आया हैं, तो हम और हिंदुस्तान दोनों मिलकर अमेरिका से भी बातचीत करता है और अपने आपस में भी बातचीत करता है और इस रास्ते को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इस्तिफादा करना और इस इस्तिफादे में लाना ये दोनों ममालिक के एक ज़रूरत है। हम इसका ज़रूरत समझते हैं क्योंकि गुज़श्ता साल अफ़गानिस्तान और हिंदुस्तान के जो तिजारत थे वो $1 बिलियन से ऊपर गया, तो अगर रास्ते बंद है तो फिर तिजारत में ज़्यादत नहीं हो सकता है, कमी होता है।
So just to paraphrase that, he did mention the Chabahar port. He speaks about how America has placed certain restrictions, pabandiyan lagai hai, certain restrictions, but Afghanistan and India can together speak with the Americans. I mean, this is the gist of it. Some of that Urdu was also a little chased for me, but I have been able to distill this from his comments. Ambassador Mukherjee, what did you make of that? And then General Malik, and then I'll come back to Padma. Ambassador Mukherjee.
Yes, I did understand him quite well, and that is exactly what he said. My reaction would be that we should go along this path. Um there are differences between us with regard to women's rights, etc. But I agree with Padma that these kind of things have to be taken pragmatically. It's good to know that they did not exclude women journalists. They did not invite them, because my understanding is that in such situations they allow women in with a scarf to cover the hair and the neck. The face is visible, and we have often gone along with these kind of restrictions, whether it was in the early days of Iran, etc. And I would like to confirm, Barkha, that when you're inside the embassy, that embassy is the property of the country concerned. Like when I was ambassador to Netherlands, where I was, my residence and my embassy, that was the property of the government of India. The Dutch have no jurisdiction over the Indian ambassador's residence or the Indian embassy. The same is true everywhere. So that is, if we wanted to have women journalists, maybe next time we should do it outside their embassy, and we should tell our lady journalists to cover their head with a dupatta or with a whatever, because that is usually the compromise worked out, even with the Taliban. But what was important was the fact that he very pragmatically felt that if Afghanistan and India together approach the US, uh, something could be worked out. That is very important, considering what General Malik said, and I completely agree that the no government in Afghanistan, be it Taliban or anyone else, have accepted the Durand line. In fact, they have described it as a knife through the heart of the Pathan. That's how they describe the Durand line, as a sharp knife in their hearts. They will never ever accept it. It doesn't matter which regime is in power, which is why, therefore, they will never accept Pakistan bossing over them, which is what the Pakistanis did actually. So when we said that we left Afghanistan in a bit of a hurry in 21, that is because our intelligence had told us that we were in serious danger, some of us, of being assassinated, including diplomats. So we pulled everyone out and assess the situation. And now that the Taliban have been able to establish control over most of Afghanistan and actually have done a fairly decent job of it, I think now is the time for us to go in a big way. They want us to finish their projects, unfinished projects, which are very important to them. And while we are doing that, we can perhaps also bring in, they're not averse to it, women's education, women teachers, women's health, help in women's health, including childbearing, etc. These are all issues on which they have no problem, as long as it's done on our side by women. So all this can be worked out, Barkha. About what is important is that I am sure that this so-called field marshal must be extremely upset at these developments, and so would be Trump. This is the day when Trump has been trumped by a Venezuelan woman. This is the day when Trump has been trumped by the Afghans, who are in Delhi, and the Afghans said no damage was done to Kabul, and the person whom they wanted to take out actually spends most of his time in the grey border area between Afghanistan and Pakistan, which is not, though of course Padma would know better than me, but my information is never been fully under the control of the Pakistani army. People just go back and forth, back and forth. It's regarded actually more as part of Afghanistan, frankly, including food habits and everything, the way the clans behave, than Pakistan. So as far as Pakistan is concerned, that part of their border is totally insecure, and the Afghans can infiltrate it anytime they want, whether they like it or they don't like it. So I think all in all, it's a big major plus point for us that we've been able to do this breakthrough. And I am sure that we will shortly announce an ambassador to Afghanistan, which brings us to the next question, Barkha, which is, will we support the Taliban bid to get UN recognition as a regime? Because right now they don't have that. If we are willing to help them in that, then I think we will be able to solve in the future many more issues, because if they are a legitimate government recognized by the UN, we wouldn't also have so much of trouble in getting the Afghan foreign minister across. We have to get the approval, getting aid across, etc. But I can see that Padma wants to say something, so
Okay,
I'll
Padma, briefly, because I want to come to General Malik, a brief interjection from you, Padma.
Yeah, very briefly, Barkha, I promise. It just reminded me, I found Ambassador Mukherjee's comments very interesting, because it reminded me of, I was wondering why we can't find a midway solution without having to announce an ambassador. Because I remember in the 70s and the 60s, we had a relationship with Israel. Moshe Dayan came to India at that time. It was a very hush-hush secret visit. So there were I traveled to Israel in 1980, and I had a stamp in my passport, which I had to get rid of later when I wanted to travel to the Middle East. So we did have a kind of a shadow relationship, if you like, with Israel at that time. So I'm wondering whether it may not be wiser to start like that.
I think once you've announced the embassy and you've made that the centerpiece of your announcement, I tend to agree with Ambassador Mukherjee that.
But you don't have to post an ambassador. You don't have to name an ambassador. You can open an embassy and you can have, an embassy without an ambassador. Yeah, something like that.
So General Malik, let me bring you in here. I think Ambassador Mukherjee makes the important point that Donald Trump and Asim Munir, both for different reasons, must be in a very bad mood today. And when the minister of the Taliban says that India and the Taliban together will talk to Trump, that's a very interesting formulation, because we have the Chabahar problem, but we also have the fight over the Bagram base. And Trump seems to have got obsessed with it. And in this, we have taken, in fact, recently, there was a joint statement that India endorsed, which said that it was unacceptable to have external military infrastructure in Afghanistan. I want you to talk about the importance of the Bagram base and what you see happening after the visit of the Taliban minister and the reopening of our embassy in Kabul.
Barkha, before I answer your question that you have posed at the end, let me also mention about the pragmatism in our geopolitics, which is essential, absolutely. And all of us seem to agree upon that. Don't forget that we opened our relations with Myanmar at a time when nobody else was talking to them. And I remember I was the one who went to talk to the generals. And then after that, we re-established our relationship. That is one aspect. And the second aspect I want to mention, once again, we can now make a point that this two-nation theory between India and Pakistan again goes for a 6. Earlier it happened in the matter of, in case of Bangladesh, and now this is another nation, a Muslim nation, which has agreed to open up with us and have a proper relationship. Now, coming back to your question, I think the foreign minister of Afghanistan was pointedly talking about Chabahar, because that is a matter of common concern for both countries. And the latest restrictions which have been placed by Donald Trump on the use of, or whatever is happening in development of Chabahar port, it affects both nations, India and even more to Afghanistan. There is no doubt that Afghanistan would like to, USA would like to get into Bagram airport, which has been one of their largest bases in this whole region earlier. But to do that, Americans will have to speak to Afghanistan. They can't go about again attacking the whole of Afghanistan. And now I feel that under the present circumstances, perhaps India can play a better role than Pakistan in order to accommodate both sides in whatever conversation that takes place.
But can I ask you a question? Please.
Engagement is absolutely essential, and I'm sure our ambassador would mention that also, would agree with that. So the negotiation, then the talk that takes place ultimately for interest of both the nations, American as well as Afghanistan, I believe that now India can play a bigger role than Pakistan. Yes, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, not at all. My follow-up was going to be that how do we know how this Taliban-Pakistan relationship is going to play out? It seems filled with contradictions. You see, there was a time when the Haqqani network, a big terror group from an Indian perspective, had safe haven in Afghanistan. Today, the Taliban minister is warning Pakistan, stop playing games with us. So there's that aspect. But then, just a few months ago, we saw a kind of trilateral coming together of Pakistan, China, and the Taliban. They all met. I think we have those images also, we can bring them up. So I'm a bit confused about the nature of the relationship between Taliban and Pakistan. Somewhere there seem to be some cross currents, overlaps, safe havens in these border areas when it comes to these terror groups. Somewhere there seems to be downright hostility now.
Look, when I mentioned about relations between the people of Pakistan, Afghanistan and people of India, and that we have always had very close relationship. I come from Northwest Frontier Province, incidentally. Yes. I was born in that area.
Yes.
So Pashtun people and Indian people of that era, they remember, they know what kind of relationship that we had. I believe that probably continues, and that will remain more important than political relationship that keeps on fluctuating, changing from time to time, depending upon the national interest of a particular country. And therefore, while there is no doubt that there are many militant organizations functioning today, it's not only the TTP, but also Balochistan, which has some roots in Afghanistan also. So these are points where the tension between Afghanistan and Pakistan is not going to die down so soon.
Yes.
And therefore, we should be quite sort of, I would say, sure in our mind that we can play a better role aligning with Afghanistan to the extent it is possible. Ultimately, we have to look after our national interest, and I'm sure the Afghan government also will have to look after their own interest, national interest. So I think we can, these are changing times, and whatever has happened between Pakistan, China, and Afghanistan recently about the talks that they have, Chinese have not been able to establish their foothold in Afghanistan yet. Of course, the ambassador would be able to confirm that, or if it should be contradicted.
Okay, let me bring in, we need to start taking last comments, but Padma, let me come to you. You have expressed this concern over the sort of, this maze, as it were, of terror networks, right?
Yeah,
and Jaishankar made an important point about cross-border terrorism with, the Taliban foreign minister sitting across from the table on a day when explosions have been heard in Kabul, not owned by Pakistan, but, most likely an attempt to take out the TTP leadership. Pakistan's made no bones about the fact that it's attempting to seek reprisal for its 11 soldiers that they've lost to the TTP. Sorry, General Malik, you wanted to make a point before Padma reacts? Yes, sir. 1 minute, sir. Yeah.
Alma Khalilzad has mentioned this, that these were Pakistani planes. And
that's right.
He would not be speaking without knowing whatever is happening.
Absolutely. I was just making the point that Pakistan, intriguingly, has not officially owned these strikes, which I'm puzzled by. I mean, why hasn't Pakistan just come out and said, we struck in the heart of Kabul and we took out so many people? But definitely, General Malik, your point is important. Padma, go ahead.
Yeah, Barkha, like you said, we don't know what the real relationship is between the Taliban and Pakistan, and we also don't know what the real relationship is between the Taliban and various terror groups staking out in that general area. There's Al-Qaeda, specifically the Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent, IS. There's Islamic State Khorasan, ISKP. There's Haqqani network, the one you mentioned. There's Lashkar-e-Jangvi, Harkatul Mujahideen. And then there are all the usual suspects like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, who shuttle in and out of Afghanistan for various reasons. The UN report some years ago, you remember, pointed to the areas in Afghanistan where these groups that target India specifically hang out, and that cannot be without the tacit knowledge of the Afghan Taliban. And this is just a couple of years ago. So the other thing I'd like to say is that, Barkha, much can get lost in translation for one thing, and much can also get lost in speaking in a foreign language, as we all know. So I'd like to point out a few things about today. I feel that we must be guarded in our assessment of what is being said. I'm sure the MEAs are masters at this, and their ears are peeled and their red pencils are sharpened. But I'm not so sure about our media. For instance, when we had this Moscow conference, our media went to town about how India has joined China, Russia, and Pakistan in opposing the US takeover of the Bagram airbase. Now look at the statement carefully. The statement just says the members called unacceptable, and I'm quoting, the attempts by countries, etc., to deploy their military infrastructure in Afghanistan and neighboring states. That's all it said. And I feel that, see, Bagram Airbase was not referred to at all, okay? So some analysts felt that unacceptable was strong language. India should have insisted on a watered-down statement.
But what else could it be if it was not Bagram? Okay.
Let me just, please just let me finish this. So, of course, it was a reference to Bagram, I'm sure, but they're saying that we should have watered down the statement and not used a word like, allowed a word like unacceptable to be used. In fact, a general on your show the other day was saying this. I can well imagine that this and neighboring states was an addition insisted upon or negotiated by India, especially after the recent revival of this bonhomie between the US and Pakistan and all the new fresh military deals, etc. Similarly, last submission, our media is now going to town saying that Muttaqi said we will not allow our territory to be used against India. See,
yes, he did say that.
He didn't say that. He didn't say that. There is an ANI clip with the translation that clearly shows what he said at that point in time. He may have meant it, but he didn't mention India. He says very clearly, verbatim, we will not allow any group to threaten anyone else or use the territory of Afghanistan against others. Later, when he had this interaction with the media, that's when they brought out India. And I suspect behind the scenes again at India's gentle nudging that you should specifically mention, they had a joint statement. So in the joint statement he mentioned India, but actually when he was he didn't mention it. So now you may call this hair splitting, but this Daesh and ISIS is sprawled all over that region. From Pakistan to well into Afghanistan is surviving despite fierce resistance from the Taliban. So, and also a very last point, if I may, observers have said that the ISIS is struggling with a lack of funds in Afghanistan, which earlier came from sources in Turkey. And after that, Turkey cracked down on these cells, so funds began to dry up, so it's in bad shape. But what is to stop Turkey now, which is another close Pakistan ally, of now suddenly turning a blind eye, if only to sabotage this newfound India-Taliban relationship? And
okay, I have to. Let me just jump in here because a little short of time, and let me get quick closing comments from Ambassador Mukherjee and General Malik. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'll start with you. Padma has all these concerns about the terror groups, and I want you to respond to that.
Actually, I wanted to say that the Taliban have said on earlier occasions very clearly that they will not allow their soil to be used against India for terrorism. And that is actually how the unfreezing of the relationship started, because they have said this on several occasions. In this particular case, what the joint statement that they have signed on is a reiteration of the fact that they have completely reversed their position from when they took power. Because when they took power, if you remember, the Pakistanis were there shaking their hand, their then army chief was shaking their hand, and they were crowing over the fact that they have now managed to get Afghanistan, who will unleash terror on India. So I think it's a very significant statement that they're not going to allow that to happen. As far as the terror groups are concerned, yes, the funding is drying up. And the funding is also drying up because some of these terror groups have also attacked BRI projects in Pakistan, and therefore the Chinese do not approve of too much funding for these kind of terror groups. So I would actually say that from India's national security perspective, we are in a better situation today because of this visit, because we can then use our newfound access and clout with the Taliban to assuage certain concerns which have cropped up, unfortunately, because of the bonhomie between Trump and the field marshal particularly, and see how that plays out. I also believe that in Afghanistan today, there is, as General Malik said, there is a very positive feeling towards India, and we should be able to use that as appropriate as possible to strengthen our relationship with Afghanistan, and also to see whether we can make things difficult for Pakistan in that context.
I want to just give the closing word to General Malik. I wanted to read out, since you reminded me, I wanted to read out, if we can pull it up on the screen, Zalmay Khalilzad's tweet, because it's very detailed, and I just want to take a moment to read it out. This is in the context of Pakistan striking Kabul as the foreign minister of Taliban is in India. And he says, today's Pakistani strikes against Afghanistan's capital are a huge escalation, and they pose dangerous risks. In recent days, Taliban operators have been active in Pakistan, attacking ISIS and killing a number of its leaders. The Pakistanis have been recklessly backing ISIS operatives against Afghanistan. This is a very important comment. The Pakistanis have been recklessly backing ISIS operatives against Afghanistan and their own Baluch insurgency. The Afghans, in turn, have been permissive towards the TTP and the Pakistani Taliban. Military escalation between Pakistan and Afghanistan is not the answer. It is unlikely to work, and it will increase death and destruction in both countries. Can we have the tweet on the screen, please? There is an alternative with better prospects, and so on. So you're right, General Malik. He does confirm that. I just want to give you the last word. We might actually be looking at a serious ramping up of tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan. That is what he is suggesting there. Clearly putting the blame at Pakistan's doors for the strikes in Kabul today, as not with any coincidence, clearly timed to the foreign minister's trip to Delhi. Go ahead, sir. Last word.
Barkha, just two sentences. One is that I think it is a good development, and we should make further progress, develop it further cautiously, carefully, to ensure that our national interest, when it comes to our relationship with Afghanistan, not only Afghanistan, but all other countries also, is handled carefully. And we can make use of it for developing better relations, or even, as I said, as a nation which can be in between USA and Afghanistan when it comes to their engagements.
Yeah, I just want to end with a comment from one of our audience members. National interest is not a gentleman or a gentlewoman's game, says V. Raghunath. It's a cold, cruel world where sentiments and ideas of propriety are secondary or even irrelevant. So I know that a lot of us may intuitively wonder, okay, why are we suddenly giving the Taliban? I have friends who've asked me, why are you suddenly covering the Taliban so much? And I have to explain what this gentleman just said. This is a chessboard where tactics, strategy, and hard power, that is the language that is understood. That is the world we unfortunately live in, a very volatile, unpredictable world where India has to guard her own interests. And that is, I think, what we see on display today. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mukherjee, General Malik, and Padma Rao. Always a pleasure. Thank you, and see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support